Why is it that the rainiest, gloomiest, just most miserable weather in Turkey produces the most wildly fast, euphoric, and aggressive dance music in the entire country?
It really doesn't make sense at first glance, right?
No, it
Yeah.
doesn't at all. I mean, think about that for a second. If you look at places with constant rain and gray skies, like the Pacific Northwest or parts of the UK, the culture usually leans into moody, introspective art.
Oh, absolutely. You get grunge music, melancholic poetry, that sort of thing.
Exactly. But on the Black Sea coast, surrounded by fog and these violent storms, people are playing this frantic, high-octane fiddle music and dancing like their shoes are literally on fire.
It's wild,
Yeah.
and it completely inverts our assumptions about how environment shapes psychology. We tend to think of human identity as this self-contained, independent thing.
Right.
But when you actually break down the mechanics of a culture, you realize that geography isn't just a backdrop. It is this active, heavy hand that dictates, well, how you move, how you interact, and what you ultimately value.
Okay, let's unpack this because that invisible hand of geography is exactly the mission of today's deep dive. We are looking through this absolutely fascinating cultural mapping project today.
Yeah, it's such a unique set of sources.
It really is. It's essentially a massive behavioral and historical audit of 4 distinct regions in Turkey. And the cool part is, it was originally put together for a team of songwriters who were just trying to understand the absolute soul of these places.
Which is an amazing way to approach history.
Right. So we aren't just looking at what these cultures do, but how and why ancient history, severe landscapes, and, deep-rooted survival mechanics have forged their unique identities.
And looking at a culture through the lens of its music and its daily rituals is incredibly revealing. You stop looking at a map as just borders and topography, and you start seeing it as a psychological blueprint.
A psychological blueprint. I love that.
Yeah, because the environment throws a specific set of challenges at a group of people over thousands of years, and their culture is just the ultimate solution to those challenges.
So let's start testing that blueprint right in the geographic and spiritual center of the country, which is central Anatolia. I want you to picture the landscape.
It's pretty stark.
Very stark. We are talking about vast, endless steppes, just wheat fields stretching out to a perfectly flat horizon. And then suddenly, you have these surreal volcanic topographies like Cappadocia with its towering fairy chimneys and intricate underground cities.
It is a landscape of extremes, primarily defined by its sheer emptiness and exposure. Historically, this was the domain of the Hittites around 1600 BCE.
Wow, that goes way back.
Oh, yeah. And they figured out how to harness these massive plains for early agriculture. But because the landscape is so vast and exposed, it's also incredibly vulnerable.
Which explains the underground cities.
Exactly. That's why you see those underground complexes in Cappadocia that weren't just for show or like storage.
Yeah.
They were highly engineered survival mechanisms.
Right, because if an invading army rolled across those flat plains, entire communities could essentially just vanish into the earth, right? Complete with ventilation shafts and subterranean wells.
Right. It's incredible. So the geography demands this kind of inward retreat.
And you see that exact same inward momentum in the infrastructure built centuries later, too. Like the Seljuk Empire, they built these massive stone caravanserais all across central Anatolia.
Yeah, the way station.
Exactly. But they didn't build them just because they had extra stone lying around. They built them because crossing that vast empty steppe on the Silk Road was genuinely perilous.
You absolutely needed fortified waypoints.
Right. The environment was so daunting that hospitality, like providing a safe haven, literally became hardwired into the regional architecture.
Which fundamentally alters the social contract of the people living there. When the environment is that vast and isolating, human connection becomes a premium commodity. There's a well-known cultural saying originating here, actually.
Oh, what is it?
It goes, "A cup of coffee is remembered for 40 years."
Wow. I mean, that sounds poetic, but historically, it's a survival mechanism.
Very much so.
If you are crossing a lonely, windswept steppe and someone takes you in and shares their limited resources, like a highly valued commodity like coffee that isn't just polite etiquette, it's a lifeline.
You remember it because that bond is what keeps society functioning in a total void.
What's fascinating here is how that physical void, the endless horizon, has such a profound effect on human spirituality, too.
Yes, exactly. It is no coincidence that central Anatolia, specifically the city of Konya, is the epicenter of Sufism and the teachings of Rumi or Mevlana.
Right.
When your daily reality is an endless, quiet plain, It strips away distractions. It forces introspection.
I want to look at the whirling dervishes through that lens. The Sema ceremony,
Yeah.
they wear those flowing white robes and they spin in continuous circles.
It's mesmerizing.
It is. And it's not a performance for an audience, It's a physical technique to achieve spiritual transcendence and unity.
Yeah.
It is an entirely inward, solitary rotation, which perfectly mirrors the feeling of standing alone in the middle of a massive empty steppe.
What's fascinating here is that it's the physical manifestation of isolation turned into spiritual elevation. The landscape demands quiet endurance, and they turned it into art.
And you hear it in the acoustics of their music, too.
Yeah.
Central Anatolia is famous for a traditional folk singing style called the bozlak.
Oh, the bozlak, yes.
The melodies are incredibly sorrowful, dealing with themes of longing and separation. But mechanically, a bozlak features these massive, powerful, crying vocal lines that sustain for a very long time.
Which makes perfect sense environmentally.
Right, because if you think about the physics of sound on a flat, windy steppe, if you sing quietly, the wind just takes it. It's completely gone.
You literally have to project.
You have to push your voice to its absolute limit just to carry your sorrow across that distance. It's like the music is structurally designed to fill the empty space.
So we have a culture built on vastness and introspection. But what happens to human psychology when we take away that open horizon and the geography literally builds walls around you?
That brings us to our second region. We are moving east now. The elevation rises rapidly, the wheat fields vanish, and we hit the brutal, rugged, snow-capped fortress of eastern Anatolia.
This environment operates on a completely different set of physical rules. We're talking about massive, high-altitude plateaus dominated by dormant volcanoes.
Most notably Mount Ararat, right? Which has all those ancient connections to the Noah's Ark tradition.
Exactly. And the winters here aren't just cold. They are completely suffocating. Historically, entire villages would be snowed in and effectively cut off from the outside world for up to 6 months out of the year.
Okay, but hold on. I have to push back on the assumption that comes with that description.
Okay, go for it.
When we hear impassable snowy mountains, we immediately think of total, pristine isolation, like a forgotten corner of the world. Yet, the demographic and historical reality of the East is a massive multi-ethnic collision. You have Turk, Kurdish, Armenian, and Azeri cultures deeply layered here. The Battle of Manzikert happened here, which fundamentally shifted world history.
Right.
So, if this place is such an impenetrable fortress, how does it simultaneously act as one of history's busiest crossroads on the Silk Road?
That is the ultimate paradox of mountainous geography. A mountain range is a fortress, yes, but because the peaks are impassable, traffic cannot disperse.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, anyone wanting to move between the Caucasus, Persia, and the Mediterranean must funnel through a few specific narrow valleys and mountain passes.
Ah, so it's a choke point. It doesn't keep people out. It traps everyone together in a very tight corridor.
Precisely. You get this intense concentration of different empires, merchants, and armies all forced to interact in the snow. And that brutal winter climate we mentioned, it acts as an incredible cultural incubator.
Because you're stuck together.
Right. Think about the mechanics of being snowed in for half the year. You can't farm. You can't travel. You are stuck indoors with your community. What do you do to maintain your sanity and preserve your history?
You tell stories.
Long ones. This is why Eastern Anatolia is the heartland of epic oral traditions. You have the Kurdistan Becce singers and the traveling Turkish Osik bards.
Like the legendary blind poet Osik Veysel, right?
Exactly. And these aren't people singing 3-minute pop songs. They are reciting massive, episodic, memorized epics that take days to unfold because they had days to fill.
The climate created a captive audience.
And an audience that relied heavily on caloric density just to survive. You see it in the regional diet, actually.
Oh, the food there is amazing.
The famous Van breakfast, loaded with heavy local cheeses, honey, and churned butter.
Yeah.
Or the kebabi from Erzurum, which is this massive horizontal spit of marinated lamb.
Yeah, you don't eat food like this in a tropical climate. This is food engineered to keep your internal body temperature up when it's minus 20 degrees outside.
And the emotional weight of that survival really bleeds into their concept of home.
It really does. There is a specific Turkish word deeply associated with the music of the East. Gurbet.
Yes, Gerbit.
It translates roughly to living in exile or the profound ache of being far from your homeland. When the land you live on demands so much of your blood, sweat, and endurance just to survive a winter, your attachment to it becomes incredibly fierce.
Which is why the music from this region rarely sounds carefree.
No, not at all. It sounds earned. It has this gritty, earned melancholia to it.
But importantly, they combat that melancholia with intense physical unity. Look at the Hele, the dominant folk dance of the
Oh
region.
my God, I love the Hele.
It's a line dance where everyone links pinky fingers or locks shoulders, moving as a single, tightly knit unit to the heavy beat of a massive drum and a piercing woodwind called a zurna. You literally cannot dance the Hele alone.
Because surviving the East is a team sport.
Exactly. Even their concept of hospitality reflects this extreme environment. In the East, the cultural ethos is a guest is a blessing. Because in a modern city, taking in a stranger is a nice gesture. On a freezing mountain pass, turning a stranger away means they will likely die of exposure. So offering shelter becomes a sacred, non-negotiable duty.
Okay, so we've seen how scarcity and brutal winters forge these incredibly tight survival-based bonds. But let's completely flip the script. What happens to a culture when the geography stops fighting you and instead hands you absolute ancient abundance?
Well, for that, we travel south. Following the melting snows out of the mountains, down into the warm, fertile river valleys of southeastern Anatolia.
The northern edge of the Fertile Crescent?
Exactly. We are talking about the lands fed by the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. And mechanically, a reliable water supply and a warm climate changes the entire trajectory of the human species.
Yeah, this is where Göbekli Tepe is located, dating back to around 9600 BCE.
One of the oldest continuously inhabited places on Earth.
Right. People realized they didn't need to constantly migrate to survive. The land was rich enough that they could stop, build monumental stone temples, and invent agriculture.
And agricultural wealth allows for surplus. Surplus allows for larger populations, which leads to trade, wealth, and the construction of dense, enduring cities.
Like Mardin.
Yes, you look at cities like Mardin today, built cascading down a hillside entirely out of this stunning golden limestone. It is architecture built for permanence, not just survival.
And the food totally reflects that surplus. The Southeast is an explosion of flavor. You have massive pistachio orchards, olive groves, pomegranates, and a heady spice trade.
Oh, the spices are incredible.
This is the home of Gaziantep, globally recognized for its culinary dominance.
Let's look at the mechanics of that food, though. It isn't just about the ingredients. It's about what the ingredients say about the society.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because making something like Gaziantep baklava is, to me, the perfect mechanical analogy for this region.
Oh, I like where you're going with this.
Think about the labor required to make traditional baklava. You have to roll out up to 40 separate layers of phyllo dough so thin you can read a newspaper through them. You have to harvest, shell, and grind thousands of pistachios. You need a massive amount of clarified butter and refined sugar for the syrup.
Which requires an incredibly complex supply chain.
Right. A nomadic tribe trying to survive a blizzard cannot make baklava. It is a physical impossibility.
No, definitely not.
To make a dessert that labor-intensive, you need immense agricultural stability, specialized tradesmen, and most importantly, you need a large, settled community with the luxury of time to sit together and perform this complex labor.
It really binds them together.
Exactly. The dessert is a structural reflection of a society that is deeply settled, interdependent, and dense. Its countless, distinct, rich layers packed tightly together, bound by the sweetness of intense community and family honor.
Interdependent is the key word. In the East, you lean on your neighbors so you don't freeze. In the Southeast, you lean on your neighbor to build prosperity and maintain deeply entrenched family honor. There is a powerful proverb from this region, actually. A stone is heavy where it belongs.
Meaning a person only has true weight, true influence, and safety when they are embedded in their community. If you leave your foundation, you lose your weight.
Which creates a highly extroverted, deeply communal culture. You see it in the Syracuse gatherings, which are very prominent in the city of San Lierfa.
Oh, the traditional music nights?
Right. These are highly organized communal nights where dozens of people gather in a large stone courtyard. They spend hours collaboratively kneading sig kofte.
Oh man, sig kofte is so good.
It is. But it's a complex, spiced raw meat dish that requires intense, sustained physical labor to prepare properly.
They're essentially cooking through collective manual labor.
Yes, while at the same time, the room is filled with loud, rhythmic, highly percussive music. People are singing, drinking wild pistachio coffee, and reciting poetry.
It's just a celebration of abundance.
Exactly. The agricultural wealth of the two rivers allowed for larger settlements, creating an extroverted festive culture. The quiet, solitary sorrow of the vast steppes is entirely gone here. This is a culture that thrives in crowds, heat, and communal noise.
Okay, so we've covered the introspective plains, the walled-in snowy fortresses, and the abundant sun-baked river valleys. All of these landscapes, despite their differences, are grounded in solid earth and stone. But for our final region, we are heading north to the Black Sea coast.
And this is a culture dictated not by earth, but by water, mist, and constant motion.
It is a total atmospheric shock. If the southeast is baked in ancient sun and stone, the Black Sea coast is defined by these steep, massive, intensely green mountains that crash directly into the sea.
The weather there is notoriously chaotic. Constant rain, dense fog, and violent storms that just roll over the villages without warning.
It's incredibly wet. There are massive tea plantations in rise because of all the rain.
And a huge fishing culture.
Right. Which brings us back to the question I asked you at the very beginning of this deep dive.
Right, the gloom versus the energy.
Exactly. In almost every other context in the world, a wet, gloomy, constantly overcast climate produces a culture that leans toward the melancholic.
Generally, yes.
But the Black Sea, particularly the Laz ethnic community and the broader coastal culture, is famous across Turkey for having the most chaotic, hyperactive, high-octane energy imaginable.
They really are.
They are fiercely stubborn, incredibly fast-talking, and known for a razor-sharp, sarcastic wit. Why does gloom produce euphoria here?
This raises an important question, and it's because they aren't experiencing the gloom from the safety of a dry living room. They are actively wrestling it. The energy isn't despite the harsh storms, but a reflection of wrestling with them. The psychology of the Black Sea isn't about passively absorbing the weather. It is an aggressive combat with the weather.
Okay, break that down for me. How does that combat play out daily?
Well, look at the regional economy. It's completely dominated by the sea, specifically the hamsi, the local anchovy, which, by the way, has something like 490 different local recipes.
That's insane.
It is. But the Black Sea is incredibly unpredictable. A calm morning can turn into a legal storm in minutes. If you are a fisherman, your survival depends entirely on frantic, coordinated bursts of hyper-vigilant energy.
Wow.
You have to haul heavy nets, navigate violent swells, and make split-second decisions. You don't have time to be melancholic. You need adrenaline.
Ah, so the high energy is literally a survival requirement. If you are slow or passive, the sea swallows you.
Exactly. Even their migrations reflect this combat. To escape the suffocating humidity of the coast in the summer, entire communities migrate up into the Yelas.
Utter Yelas.
They are these incredibly remote, high-altitude alpine pastures that are often literally above the cloud line. Moving herds up steep, slippery, fog-covered mountains requires serious stubbornness. It selects for a tough, resilient, almost defiant personality.
And that defiance is perfectly encoded in their art. The traditional dance of the Black Sea is the horon.
Oh, the horon is amazing to watch.
It's nothing like the slow, communal, shoulder-to-shoulder stomping of the snowy east. The horon is explosive. The dancers form a line, but their footwork is impossibly fast, and their shoulders shake violently.
Because the horon is a physical reenactment of their environment.
Really?
Yeah, the frantic shoulder shimmies directly mimic the spasms of a silver hamsi fish struggling in a net. And the sudden, coordinated drops and rises of the line. They mimic the violent crashing of the ocean waves.
That is incredible. They are literally dancing the storm.
And the music driving the dance is primarily the kemence. It's a small, three-stringed bowed instrument. The way it's played is aggressive, frantic, with a sharp, almost crying tone that cuts through the noise of a crowded room, much like a shout cuts through the wind on a fishing boat. Even their humor, which is famous nationwide for being eccentric and fast-paced, is a psychological defense mechanism. When your livelihood is at the mercy of an unforgiving, unpredictable sea, an aggressive sense of humor is how you maintain control over your fear.
It's a refusal to be beaten down by the environment. Black Sea people are just wild, full of crazy energy.
Precisely. The music, the dance, the slang, it's all the sound of a people refusing to sit quietly in the rain.
So what does this all mean? It really brings this entire mapping project into focus. We started by asking how much our local weather and geography dictate who we are.
And the answer is quite a lot.
A ton. Looking at the mechanics of these four regions, it's clear that Turkey isn't a monolith, but a mosaic. Geography is the author of the culture.
It really is.
The infinite flat steps naturally engineer deep inward spirituality and a necessity for sanctuary. The impassable freezing mountains breed resilient, long-form storytelling and fierce, fortress-like communal loyalty.
The warm, ancient abundance of the river valleys breeds complex, extroverted societies built on layered labor.
And the violent, unpredictable storms of the Black Sea breed this adrenaline-fueled, defiant, wild energy.
It strips away the illusion that our traditions are just arbitrary choices. The way an ancient culture builds a house, the spices they use, the speed of their music. These are highly evolved, ingenious technologies designed to solve the very specific problem of the dirt they were born on.
I want you, listening to this, to apply that same audit to your own hometown. Think about the layout of your own neighborhood. Does the infrastructure force you to interact with your neighbors on a sidewalk, or does it isolate you behind long driveways?
That's a great exercise.
Think about the local weather you grew up in. How has a constant oppressive summer heat or a brutal snowy winter subtly engineered your own slang, your diet, or the way you view the world?
And investigating those mechanisms leaves us with a rather profound and urgent question, actually, based on all these sources.
What's that?
If the soul of a culture, its deeply emotional music, its architectural style, its resilient temperament, is entirely the result of a thousands of years-long negotiation with a specific climate, well, what happens to that soul when the climate changes?
Wow. If the snows stop isolating the mountains, or the rivers feeding the ancient plains dry up, or modern infrastructure completely removes the necessity of wrestling with the sea, do the survival mechanics that birthed the culture become obsolete?
It's a massive question for the modern world.
It definitely makes you look at the sky outside your window and the ground beneath your feet a little bit differently.